Good morning, student friends. I hope all of you are safe and well. We are now coming the last of our we have had motivational lectures. Then we have had, we have taken your feedback. Is very important for us to go ahead. Please use the e-books that we have gotten, because yesterday somebody wrote of the mock tests, papers that are on, and then the answer keys that are available within 48 hours. You them out.
Yes, friend, somehow we got disconnected from Devasis Mitra. Let me introduce NC Hegde. NC Hegde, he is presently chairman of International Taxation Committee of ICAI, the second term of the Central Council. And Hegde sir also headed the Direct Tax Committee in the last year, and this is his 5th year in the Central Council. Friends, he is great person who do regular studies, and very I can say he is taking too much care of his health. Morning walk, evening walk, all this he regularly doing. So he is taking care of his health, and he is great motivation to all of us in the Central Council, I can say. And definitely he will provide motivation to all of my student friends who are watching this. So over to NC Hegde for his motivational talk.
Thank you, Sushilji, the Vice Chairman, and Debashish. I think unfortunately a lot of us could not hear Debashish very clearly, and I think that is, it is because they have challenges. Both Chairman and Vice Chairman are from the city of Calcutta, and they have gone through a very difficult time in the last few days. So obviously a lot of infrastructure facilities may still not be up and running. But in spite of that, they have made it a point because of the commitment that they have, and for the students as such. The Vice Chairman and the Chairman did have some kind words for me. Let me tell you, colleagues, whatever one believes and whatever one does, I think one still gets goosebumps when one thinks of the CA exams and how difficult it was to pass the exams. And therefore, while I will try and give you a little bit of pointers and give you some practical tips probably, I think it is no secret that one has to work hard for the exams, and I think that is the most important aspect of our CA exams, that you can't leave anything to chance and try your luck as such. But before I begin to give you a few practical tips, I think the first thing that I would like to tell you is that these are very difficult and turbulent times of the COVID-19, and I think all of us are undergoing a lot of stress wherever you are and in whichever city you are. I think times are very difficult. We have never seen these times. These are unprecedented times, and therefore for students, I can very well imagine what you're going through. I'm sure you would all be very keen for the exams to take place and to be done with exams and to return to your other activities on your normal daily routine as such. And clearly, one cannot really be fully concentrating in times when you are not very sure about when these exams will take place and of all the attendant uncertainties around the entire travel, exam centers, etc., etc. So I know these are very difficult times, and therefore I think it is most important to keep your concentration going and try and focus on the subject and not defocus, not lose focus on the subject, because at times when you have an extension of the exams, very often you have a tendency to put off things, and that may sometimes not be the best way to study for the exams. So please do focus, please do concentrate. I think there is at least one thing that you cannot complain about the lack of time this time. A lot of us, when we were giving our exams, used to think that we have very few days for the exams and to prepare for them. Whereas this time, that's not an issue. I think a lot of you have got the time. And I think you must make use of this, whatever opportunity you have got of increased time to try and study the subjects thoroughly. Maybe, as Sushilji mentioned, to have a more balanced approach. If you are reading, say, for an X number of hours, maybe reduce the number of hours. Also spend time on a little bit of exercise, a little bit on yourself. Try and get out the stress, maybe do whatever is necessary for the immunity building and focus on the exams as such. As far as the direct taxes paper is concerned, you have the paper which is divided into direct taxes and international taxation, and that is because in recent times international taxation has also become a very important aspect of our tax of the subject of tax in India. And in fact, in recent times, with a lot of foreign collaborations and with the opening up of the investment, with the opening up of investment since 1991, we have an entire dedicated study on international tax, because the number of subjects have increased so much that a lot of practitioners and professionals actually can specialize in different segments of international tax and still be able to do very good practice around it. As far as the institute is concerned, I think not only the chairman, the present chairman and the present vice chairman and the board of studies, but I think the overall, over the last so many years since I have come to the council, I have seen that if there is one thing that all the council members are united about, I think it is about the interest of students and their application on seeing how things could become easier for the students to pass the exams, to give the best as far as the study material is concerned, to make life easy for them. And I think this is very clearly reflected in the study material that you have today, which is so much more comprehensive than what we had about 30 years ago. If you look at the study material, it is very comprehensive. There are illustrations, there are case laws, there are those test questions. And I think I would recommend that you please go through the study material in great detail. Whatever you may do, you may also obviously rely on additional material in whatever you do in terms of books or other material that you sometimes pick up from coaching classes and whatnot. But I think it is most important that you focus on the study material and the illustrations which is given, because very often, as I've noticed right from my exams, that can often be the basis of some questions in the exams as such as well. But do try and apply apply yourself to the questions which are raised without looking at the answers, such that you test yourself on those concepts which are there, chapter after chapter. There are also those revision papers which come in, and they have the additional case laws which are cited. They also have the additional updates, judicial updates. And I think that is important, because very often right from the time that we had given our exams, there used to be sometimes one particular question which used to be sometimes devoted on some of these additional updates and the revision papers which had come, just to test the student whether the student is alert in relation to some of these developments. The institute also, I must compliment the chairman, vice chairman for this brilliant initiative of having the revision classes, and that too on an online mode where you can sit very comfortably in your own house and premise and listen to expert speakers like the eminent faculty for the day today, Sri Manish Dasaria. And we must thank people like Sri Manish Dasaria, who have spent a lot of their time, valuable time, for the sake of students, for helping you to understand the subject and to grasp the subject well. I do remember in our times, one had to go to a certain physical location, and in places like Mumbai, that would be quite far from the residence. One had to probably commute for about a year, for an hour and a half in order to go and attend these classes. Of course, there was a benefit also, and that was that one could hear sometimes the stalwarts who used to come to the Sydenham classes and or the NM college classes and deliver these lectures, and some of those basic concepts of tax which we have learned from the stalwarts have always remained intact till today, and that is what I would also strongly recommend, that when these classes are on and when some of these expert faculty is on, I think if you listen to them carefully, I think you will probably get to learn some very strong concepts, and these concepts will remain with you forever. One does remember of eminent speakers where, especially in other subjects like costing, and if they have spoken about a particular subject, that subject, and some of those jokes and illustrations that they used probably are even now today a subject matter of discussion whenever one remembers those revision classes. So please make full use of these revision classes. They are for your benefit, and it is always well known that when one hears someone, the retention is much better. You can remember much better as opposed to your own study. Sometimes you have a tendency after a certain time to get bored, whereas when you hear someone speaking on the subject, retention is certainly much better, and that is something that I would urge you to concentrate on. If you have already studied the subject, then the revision classes will prove very helpful for you to be a kind of a refresher on the subject as such, and it is also probably a very good chance to see what you already know and what is being spoken about in as far as the subject is concerned. On the subject matter of direct tax, I think it is very important to understand the provisions, and I think to try and understand the basic concepts. Now, any kind of law, whether it is income tax law, company law, whatever, is ultimately applied common sense. And therefore, in relation to a subject, I think it is not very difficult to understand. Of course, there are sometimes situations in tax, especially for direct tax, indirect tax, where there are deeming situations where whilst something is not so as per common sense or as normally understood, the tax statute or the tax gatherer wants you to understand the provision in a particular way, and these are those deeming fictions that you come across in various provisions of the law. So those are the ones where you have to have, of course, special attention, because that doesn't follow the normal common sense approach in relation to the part of the law. So please understand the provisions, and I think if you start reading those provisions and like a storybook, I would say, then I think it will become much more interesting as such. I do remember that when I used to study for my paper of direct tax, during the day I would normally reserve it for an hour or a slot when there would be nobody around in the house. Maybe my elder brother and all will go to office and others, and where one could get some quiet so that I could easily concentrate on the subject and to study it, so that the retention would be much better, the understanding would be much better. So there are some subjects which are easy to understand. There are some subjects where it will be good to concentrate, and I think the direct tax subject is one of them. Clearly, the study material and any other additional material and papers, any other textbooks, etc., are all drawn from the BEAR Act and the rules. And I think, therefore, it would be recommended that at times you have a look at the BEAR Act and the rules, because that is also something that is extremely handy when one is practicing the subject of direct tax. One has to normally look at the BEAR Act and the rules. Even the most eminent counsel don't look at other things. They would first pick up a BEAR Act and the rules whenever they have to study any particular problem to understand what the Act says, and then look at any other additional material. So these days the BEAR Act and the rules is easily available on the website of the Income Tax Department as well as other websites on the internet. And at times I would ask you to cursorily refer to the BEAR Act and the rules. Your students, so obviously the study material is something which is the most important for you, which is like your Bible, but at the same time do refer to the BEAR Act and the rules, and sometimes you may find that a reading of the rules will make it much more easy to understand what is being said in the study material. Because please do remember that when these matters get decided by judges and by other authorities, they also have the BEAR Act in front of them which they interpret. And a lot of students of commerce are better off than sometimes authorities and judicial authorities and judges, because very often some of these people come from a different background. They are not from a commerce background, you are from a commerce background. And therefore, if you read the BEAR Act and the rules, I think it will be a great help for you to understand the subject that much better. So these in turn, these are in some of the pointers that I thought I would highlight. As I mentioned, the direct taxes is something which is applied common sense, and I think something that you would understand very easily. It all flows from the profit and loss account. The major question, which is in relation to computation of income, is something that we all, we are all practicing very often, whether you are doing a tax in your articles or not. And I think that is something which largely goes by common sense, and therefore should be easy for you to try and comprehend or understand. On the subject matter of case law, I've always heard a lot of people complain that there is too much of case law and therefore sometimes difficult to remember. I think it is more important to understand the basic concept of the law. And if you can remember a couple of case laws and understand the concepts behind them, then that is well and good. But don't be too worried if you really don't know the case law very thoroughly. It is important to understand the concept that the case law has enunciated, and I think that is very important. Why case laws are sometimes important, and that's why in the study material there is an additional module on case law. And the institute also gives you case law, as I said, updates from time to time, is because in relation to certain subjects, in relation to certain provisions of the law, there is often a particular case law which beautifully elaborates and explains the particular section. And therefore, if you have understood the case law with the background in real time in real time application of facts as relevant to a company, and what did happen and what was the approach of the tax department and was finally held, I think it gives you a beautiful understanding of how the law was sought to be. I may not get a chance to practice as such. So direct taxes is extremely important, because this is an area that normally society and the government associate with chartered accountants. Whilst it is a subject of law, nobody really looks at a lawyer when he wants to understand a quick implication or quick interpretation of the tax law. They normally always refer to a chartered accountant, because we have the ability of both understanding the accounting, the computation, as well as the interpretation of law. And therefore, we are always the first to be approached when anybody has any problem on any matter of tax. So direct taxes and international tax, therefore, is an extremely important subject, and I think it is important not only for your exams, but for your career going ahead. that you develop an interest in it, apply yourself to the subject, try and analyze the provisions, and I'm sure you will do a great job. On international tax, this concept also, as I mentioned earlier, has become very important world over. Concepts are changing, and India has often had the last laugh now, because India used to be a source rule country where we used to tax income of non-residents on the basis of source. At that point of time, a lot of people used to criticize India because this is 1976. If you see the provisions of Section 9 and all the subsections, a lot of them were introduced in 1976 when we introduced the source rule. At that time, there was a lot of criticism of the Indian tax law. But now, after so many years, after 45 years, I think most of the developed world also wants to tax on the basis of source. And I think Indian tax authorities therefore can say that, look, we had told you so, that there is this right to tax at source and we had correctly exercised it. So international tax also has developed very significantly over the last, if I would say, about 30 years. And more collaborations, more and more foreign investment has come into the country. And therefore, this is also a very attractive area of practice for chartered accountants. So it is much easier, I would say, than the normal tax law, because there are not too many sections. If one understands sections 9 and 195 and others very thoroughly, one can easily practice international tax law, and that is what I would also ask you to focus on. Right? I think I've spoken a lot. I think I don't want to really bore you with further tips. And as I said, the expert faculty who is currently an expert on the subject is much better to guide you. That I think I will stop talking. But before that, I must thank the chairman and the vice chairman for giving me this opportunity, and Vandana Madam, who's the Board of Studies Director, for this opportunity of being able to address students, something that I'm extremely proud of, being a member of the institute. And of course, tax was something that was very dear to me as a subject. I developed an interest when I had started studying for the subject, and I think since then the interest has not waned, and I think it has also helped me to make a decent career for myself if I reflect back. So I'm sure that each one of you probably is certainly brighter than me and will do much better on the subject, and therefore wishing you all the very best for your exams and for the rest of your careers as such. Thank you. Back to you, Sir Chairman.
Thank you very much, NC, for sharing your thoughts with us. Students, those of you who have heard him speak, he was speaking on focus, he was speaking on being balanced, he was speaking saying that, you see, use the study material, read it, but use it as a storybook. Read it as a storybook. He was saying, enjoy studying that study material. He said, common sense is so important when you study law, and especially direct taxes. And, of course, which other speakers have said, conceptual clarity. You see, NC has been one of the leading lights on direct taxes in the council. He has, as Sushil Goyal must have said, he has already chaired Direct Tax Committee, International Tax Committee. And it is our, great privilege and pleasure to, have him with us today and to have heard his thoughts. I'm sure the students would have immensely benefited from whatever NC Hegde has said. Students, once more I repeat, today at 5:30 p.m. we are having a live interaction. President, Vice President of the Institute will be there. Please join the live interaction. Once more, heartfelt thanks to NC Hegde and Manish ji. You are all set, I know, to speak. And, you are also a storehouse of knowledge. And I'm sure the students will take great benefit from whatever you are going to, present today. Thank you very much for giving time to the Board of Studies. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello. Yeah, I'm audible. And PPT is there.
Manish ji, you are not audible. Manish ji, your link is not
Hello.
clear. It is not audible.
Okay. Technical team is saying it is okay. Jay.
I'm checking on YouTube and nothing is coming, sir.
Hello.
Now it is better, sir. Now you can continue, but earlier voice was not coming. Manish ji, you can close your video.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Mr. Jai, can you hear me? नहीं अभी भी आवाज कहाँ आ रही है मनीष जी की आवाज नहीं आ रही है Yes, Manish sir, please speak. Manish sir, please start your speech deliberation once again. Manish ji, please start again. Mr. Jai, he can't hear us. Sir, nothing is going on online. कुछ भी नहीं सुनाई दे रहा था मैं तो YouTube में लॉगिन किया कुछ भी नहीं सुन रहा था Manishji, please try to start again.
Jai in it.
the case of sample gas rate change.
गिरीश जी म्यूट कर लो अपने को. गिरीश जी म्यूट कर लो एक मिनट.
Sir, excuse me, sir, Mr. Manish. Good morning, students. Extremely sorry to have made you wait for such a long time. Actually, we've all been trying to resolve a technical problem which cropped up today. But due to some reason, it has not been possible for us to resolve it. Once again, we apologize for having made you wait for such a long time. Kindly note that today's morning topics on set-off and carry forward of losses and deduction from gross total income will be taken up in today's evening session from 7 to 9. And whatever the other topics for today's evening session, that will be taken up on 26th morning, Tuesday 26th morning session from 7 to 10. Please note this. And once again, we are very sorry. We regret the inconvenience caused. We will meet you again today evening at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for your